and welcome to the Overwatch Community Cup preseason. We are going to jump into a game between the Toronto Tempest and the Houston Inlaws, and we're going to get that underway soon. Unfortunately, earlier the Confusion staff was not around to corral their players into a game, so we're going to have this one as our first game for you. We're going to go over and take a little look at them real quick. As of so far, we've got the Inlaws mostly sharing the Houston Outlaws icon. We've got Jake, as if he were actually Jake from the Houston Outlaws. Unfortunately, we do have US Air 1104 who has not gotten the memo about the Houston Outlaws icon and is going to go with the good old Season 1 icon. And we're going to see how that affects the gameplay. On the other side, we have Toronto Tempest, who does not have an actual Overwatch theme that they are based on. So they are going with their own Overwatch League icons instead. Except for Unwanted, who's going with a more Tempest-themed icon, a lightning cloud. We may be starting on King's Row. That is one of the 2 maps that is available for this preseason. If any of you want to look at the rules, there is a link to the Discord. If you type !Discord in this chat, you'll be able to go to the Community Cup Discord and read the rules document for yourself. That has the schedules, the maps, the Diamond Player rule, and other rules that this stream will go by. That does look like Unwanted has in fact joined the rest of his team in the Overwatch League icons. Finally getting some unity on side of the Toronto Tempest. And the Houston Inlaws as well. This game should commence shortly. And here it comes.
Now entering King's Row.
We're gonna go to King's Row, which is possibly the best map in Overwatch, definitely a fan favorite. You can run dive, death ball, triple tank, quad tank. You can run anything you want as long as the team synergy is there. You have to break through that first choke point. You can also defend any way you want. Risa Hog is very good, so is Ryan Zarya, to try and absorb as much damage as you can. Or teams could opt for a defensive dive. There are a lot of areas, like perhaps here, that teams could hide and then dive the targets. And then you have the streets phase, possibly the easiest phase. But still, gets stuck. Teams can always defend on this phase, and then we get to the hardest phase and certain players' favorite areas. But in any case, we are going to go to an anti-dive defense. We're going to have Orisa and Hog with an interesting double hit scan. They may be expecting a Pharah, which isn't completely unwarranted. We do have Mercy and Moira for the healing, which is really interesting. That's going to be not a lot of damage, but in a whole lot of healing from 2 main support characters, especially on bulky characters like Orisa and Hog, both of which have abilities that increase their defense by 50%. On the other hand, we do have triple tank with a Tracer, which is one of the best ways you can run triple tank, especially into other triple tanks, as Tracer can get ultimate very quickly off of big bodies. Jake is going to do a long flank, going to see what he can get from there, but in the meantime, the rest of his team is going to push onto the point. Unwanted does get the first pick onto the primary healer, but Zero is keeping the high ground with his machine gun very well, but Hog does chase him down. Balls does get that high ground from him. Jake is causing more mayhem in the backline. what you want to run as this comp with Orisa and Hog is a solid, you know, like choke point defense. But Houston Inlaws has decided that that's not going to happen. A good stick onto Honor Caution as she gets the res. That is going to mean that Ashe is back though, which is a lot of healing potential. And that's going to be enough to put the fight in the favor of Toronto Tempest. So while Mercy did go down during the res, that res was exactly what they needed. Oh, and then Jake is actually going to get picked off. Some damage from McCree, some damage from Moira. That's going to be enough, and that's going to make the Houston Inlaws have to wait a little bit. Looks like they're going to start pushing in. Nothing gotten from that Deadeye. Except maybe a little bit of time. But Unwanted is going to try and get a little bit of a flank. Grav is going to come through, it's going to pick up Soldier, and the Houston Inlaws is just going to sit on the point. Fights have gone, or the kills have gone back and forth, but it does look like the Houston Inlaws are going to take this fight. With just Roadhog on the point. Despite how beefy he is, that is going to be it. We're going to move on to the second phase, where we don't have any comp changes from the Toronto Tempest, but we do have a Genji coming out from Jake. That Genji is dead as he does get hooked off of an Orisa halt, which is a very good combo, the reason you run those two tanks together. Unwanted is using a Deadeye. He gets one, and that may be all he needs to halt their push. Another halt hook onto the enemy. That's gonna stagger them even further. Jake gonna pull out the Jake Rat. Definitely a solid option against the barriers of Orisa and the big health pool of Roadhog, but Unwanted is up on this high ground, getting more damage. We're gonna see an Earth Shatter comboed with Coalescence, and that's gonna pick up a lot of kills on the side of the Houston Inlaws. As Unwanted is gonna try and find his way back. It does look like this payload is gonna make it to the second point fairly uncontested, unless someone from the Toronto side can get to it. That does not seem likely. Meanwhile, Unwanted is still gonna find his way back. Unfortunately, the problem with Unwanted surviving that whole time, when he probably should have died, is that his team has been fighting a 5v6 this entire time. While it does seem counterintuitive to try and kill yourself in Overwatch, it sometimes is the optimal decision. The grab is gonna come in, but it's only gonna pick up Mercy. And then Unwanted finally shows up 10 minutes late with coffee and a Deadeye, is going to pick up Apple. But this hold is going to be coming through in favor of the Toronto Tempest. Still though, 3 minutes for this last phase is a pretty good amount of time. And it looks like we've got a Tire ready to come through and try and get any picks that he can. Here it comes. Gets stuck on the wall a little bit, gets stuck on the other wall. It's gonna, okay, there we go. And spots the Reaper. That's combined with the Roadhog, two very valuable picks. This team needs to push through. Toronto Tempest has to back up, but there's only so much they can back up when the point's right here. Coalesce is gonna make Gaming Reptile's life very hard. These picks are starting to come in for the Inlaws. Actually, they're going to come in for Unwanted. who's gone onto the Widow and has gotten a whole bunch of picks. Earthshatter does come down though, but Unwanted, uncontested. But speaking of uncontested, Unwanted is not able to contest the cart. And that is going to be 3 points with a decent chunk of time remaining. Now it is going to be up to the Inlaws to try and hold their defense, as the payload did make it all the way to the end. We're going to see what kind of composition changes they're going to make, because Toronto probably doesn't want to run a Risa Hog on attack. Well, it is possible, it's very slow, and probably not something you want to run on this kind of map. It does look like we're going to get a much more standard dive from Toronto Tempest, which I definitely agree with.
Imagination is the essence of discovery.
We've got the dive tanks, we've got Genji and Unwanted on the Widow. Unwanted was doing very well as Widowmaker, so it definitely makes sense that he's going to get the high ground up here at the beginning of the point and get any picks that he can, as well as scouting out the enemies. Honor Caution, playing with all of our hearts, is pretending to play Symmetra, but we all know that it's not meant to be. And it'll probably go to Lucio or Moira. On the defending side, we are going to have the Reinhardt Zarya again. A very good combination. Bubbling Reinhardt is usually free 40 damage if he's taking a lot of fire. Jake is going to be on the Jake Rat. And US Air is going to be Soldier on the high ground, which is a very scary force to be reckoned with. We're going to see if Unwanted can get any early picks once the game starts. Opting for a different sniping route. Doesn't quite get the shot, but I liked the angle, but I think more standard angle from the starting area would have been better. The rest of Toronto Tempest is going to rotate around this statue, but Zero is going to go down. Unwanted half health is trying to keep an eye out for anyone on the high ground. The rest of the team is going to move forward without Zero. He'll probably be able to make it back. He's Genji. He can jump. US Air does know where they are, though, and has a very good sight line. They've decided to not take that back high ground. They're going to push the point instead, just on the normal route. Dive is coming in. But they don't stay there too long. A squishy robot does take out D.Va. And Toronto Tempest needs to back out without their big defense matrix tank. Jake's closing in on his Riptire. Transcend has Coalescence. If they use their ults wisely, they should be able to hold even longer. But Unwanted does take down US Air. Jake finds Ashe. And even though Coalescence is coming out, you can't out-heal a Riptire. Wherever this Riptire might be going, doesn't get anything. But it does look like... or I suppose it did get the D.Va mech, which is still valuable. And this is going to be another hold for the Houston Inlaws. Zero's moved on to the Pharah. Risky, given US Air on the Soldier, as perhaps shown Commentator's Curse. Probably not the best option, especially without a Mercy. Unwanted is going to go on the McCree. He wants to find a more active role in this fight. Meanwhile, we're coming up on a bunch of ultimates from the Houston Inlaws. We've got Earthshatter, we've got Transcendence, Visor, and soon-ish, a Graviton. Reinhardt is going to charge the Transcending Zenyatta, push that healing away from the team as the dive tanks get chased away a little bit. Visor does come out from US Air. And then the grab does get eaten, though, from behind as D.Va gets that chomp on the ultimate. And this is actually going to go in favor of Toronto Tempest, despite the ult advantage that Houston Inlaws had. One of the biggest problems is that Apple, I don't think, was able to use Earthshatter as he still has it.
Escort the payload.
This is my will.
The Inlaws are going to try and hold this choke point around this corner. It's a very good place to play because you have this little building that you can stay out of the sight lines, but you can contest the payload once it comes around. Jigrat is up on that high ground, just raining damage. Defense Matrix only lasts so long, and here comes an Earthshatter. It does get D.Va out of mech, eventually kills the D.Va. The Zenyatta goes down as well. And that is going to be a clean push off of one ultimate. Looks like Gaming Reptile is going to get his team back together. I think the best case for this would be as a dive. Yeah, just to push right past them. And the picks are already coming through. Coalesce does pick up a kill. Zero finds another. And that's going to be a very clean team fight. A lot of ultimates used, but they still have 2, almost 3. So very good ult management. There will be enough time for the Houston Inlaws to contest this payload. Toronto Tempest was unable to make it when they were on defense, but this will be another chance for the Inlaws to hold. And the player to watch again will be Jigrat, who has another tire coming up. If he can get good, valuable picks, that'll be a push, or a stop to this push. Goes past the D.Va, and the tire does get destroyed. Ashe finds not only the Rip Tire, but also Apple. That's a lot of barriers down. Both Transcendences come out. The Zenyatta mating ritual commences, as this just leaves damage to get ultimates, as no one will die. Jake finds a couple, but Unwanted finds a couple of his own. He's going to chase down balls. Does get the flashbang, stops the healing. Deadeye comes out, but does get hooked and murdered. Well, this fight was incredibly close, and Undead was close to finishing off a few. This fight is going to be in favor of the Houston Inlaws, which is something that the players needed to respect earlier, particularly Game Reptile needed to jump out sooner. Luckily, he did not die, so it's not a huge issue. Here comes a Coalescence, trying to do as much healing and damage as possible. There's a lot of people in a line. D.Va Bomb does find Squishy Robot. That's going to be some healing and damage down.
30 seconds.
The Jigrat Trap does find Honor Caution. And then a tire does come through, but gets destroyed immediately as Gaming Reptile gets a couple kills and finishes this point. While they're at the time disadvantage, they still have a possibility of finishing this map. Unwanted doing as much damage as he can and try and get his ultimate. I do like the switch off of McCree. Both characters are very good, but I think Visor is just a little bit more powerful in this situation. Earthshatter does come through. That's going to be an unmech. Winston down. Ashe is down as well. Does take a little bit longer to get D.Va unmeched, but eventually, in the end, it will happen. And Apple's Earthshatters have just been so good. It's always 3 or 4 people. Especially the Earthshatters onto the D.Va mech, because that's so important with the defense matrix. Zero's got Pulse Bump. See if you can get any good picks. Unfortunately, Jigrat is on the high ground, which is going to be a little hard to get him. Ooh. It does get the Steel Trap. Probably not the intended purpose of the Pulse Bump, but it does happen. Transcendence does come out. The Zenyatta mating ritual happens again, as Balls just kind of pushes him away.
30 seconds.
The bump does come out, and Sykes does go down. US Air using Deadeye does get Ashe. He's going to try and pick up the rest. Is unable to get Zero so far, but even a flashbang will kill, and a body shot does finish her off.
10 seconds.
Our time runs short.
the Toronto Tempest only has 5 seconds to try and get on this point as Coalescence is going to come through, but immediately canceled by Earth Shatter. Terra comes through and finishes off Honor Caution, and unfortunately that is going to be the end of this map. Contest all you like, but unfortunately, with 6 members of Houston Inlaws on the payload, that's going to be it.
Victory.
Get into position.
Play of the game.
Play of the game is going to go to Gaming Reptile. Despite losing the game, what really matters is play of the game. Which, to be fair, was the only reason that they were able to... Not the only reason, but the biggest reason they were able to close out that second point. So while the players deliberate on their next map, let's talk about what we just saw. There was a lot of good ultimate economy coming from the Houston Inlaws. I really liked the ways that they sequenced their ults. Their apples, Earth Shatters, had great value. The Gravitons usually, they weren't super great, but they usually ended up with a kill or two, unless Syax, apologies if I'm mispronouncing that name, ate it. That Diva Matrix eating the Zarya Graviton on King's Row point A was very good. Diva Matrix just went like around the Zarya, just cutting off any kind of projectiles. Toronto Tempest was close to finishing, well, close-ish to finishing the map, but they just didn't seem able to have the coordination or the ult economy. I think a lot of that comes down to a composition in this level of play. It's a lot easier to play the Reinhardt Zarya Deathball composition because Reinhardt just holds up his shield. Zarya stands behind him, bubbling. I'm not going to say easy, it's just simpler. Dive is a lot more complicated. You have to have every player on the same page, you have to have everyone together in a group, and the Winston, typically, or the Zenyatta, has to say, this is who we're going to dive, we're all going to dive them, and then the shot calling goes from there. It's a lot more difficult, even in Diamond Master, Grandmaster play, to have that consistent coordination and communication. But it's still a very good composition, even in this level of play. The players just need to be able to talk to each other and have that kind of synergy. And it didn't seem like it was quite there. Orisa Hog also, what didn't seem to be working. Orisa is very good at putting the barriers, halting people away, but the Houston Inlaws was able to just walk through the barrier and walk onto the point. I think those tanks should have switched a little bit sooner. I think Hog is very good, but I think the Orisa just didn't seem to be working out. As to what they should have played, I'm not sure who they're comfortable with, but I think a Diva Roadhog would have been a good kind of pick composition if they were going to run the Hog, or a standard Reinhardt Zarya, or even Reinhardt Hog. Reinhardt Hog is very good as well. I think Reinhardt would have been better, as he has a lot more mobility with his barriers, and a lot of close range damage with his hammer swings. Orisa just didn't seem to be the right character for that dive situation. Now, while this next game is being chosen, there's a 5-minute break in between games from now on, which means that I'm going to go on to break as well, and I will see you soon. little bit of a quick break, as the next map has already been decided to be Ilios. I think this is going to favor Houston Inlaws a lot, as they already have that dive down. I'm going to expect a lot of Lucios for the boop potential, a lot of Roadhogs, and a lot of Far Mercies, because this is one of the maps where Far Mercy is still very good. We're going to move on over to the game. And we're going to start out on the Lighthouse. There's a lot of Lucio boot potential, particularly in these corners, to be like a little fiend hides over here. This is definitely, actually, one of the more flexible maps as far as compositions go. You can run dive here, but you can also run the Death Ball, as this is a place where a lot of damage will be taken if both teams decide to fight here. There's also a lot of places for Widow to snipe from. So you do have a lot of flexibility, but dive still, due to the current meta, is probably the best option. On the side of the Toronto Tempest, we're going to have Roadhog and Reinhardt, which I definitely appreciate on this kind of map. Reinhardt has that mobility to get around, and Roadhog going to get hooks from behind Reinhardt's shield. We're going to have two main healers again. So I'm wondering who the shot caller is, because typically that's a Lucio or a Zenyatta, if not the main tank. So it may be down to Gaming Reptile. And then for DPS we do have Soldier and Genji. Kind of like a pseudo-dive. On the opposite team, we are going to have a very, very standard dive with Moira instead of Zenyatta, but everything else is the same. And Apple's already jumping onto the high ground. Gonna try and get some picks, particularly on the Ana. Is not able to get anything, but his team does heal him up very quickly. Comes through again, and he spots the Ana and the Moira. But the first one to go down is US Air to Unwanted Rockets. Houston Inlaws does take the point, though. As now Toronto Tempest has to figure out how to get them off the point to take it, but the longer the fight goes, the longer the Houston Inlaws take percentage. Gaming Reptile is actually going to go down. Doesn't get the healing despite having two main healers. Diva Bomb does come through, but it is avoided. And it does look like Houston Inlaws is going to hold on to this. The Toronto Tempest team is still on its way back, but they need to go ahead and regroup. They need to stop coming in. This is a very dangerous place for Sykes to be, despite being Roadhog. It looks like he's going to try and get a cheeky pick, but it does look like he's going to feed more than anything else. So he does get stuck, and that's a lot of damage onto him and Reinhardt. It's very fortunate for Syax that there were no healers nearby, because that would have been terrible. Unwanted gets the first pick again in this fight, as Gaming Reptile looks for an Earth Shatter. Probably right after this bubble goes down. But Lucio Bears come out. Jake's Genji gets a blade, gets one pick, and that is all, as Visor's actually going to take him down as well. Yet another pick from Unwanted, and this point is finally going to flip in favor of the Toronto Tempest. Lots of picks coming out from Unwanted. It seems to be a very solid DPS. He's going to pick up the high ground, while Toronto Tempest holds this kind of courtyard area, which is definitely better than holding over here, because Lucio has the potential to just right-click you off the map. Apple's going to go ahead and dive already, finds a soldier, goes down, but so does Unwanted. Lots of damage coming out to Gaming Reptile. He does get healed up. And the fight's going to move over to the point. Squishy Robot does go down, though. That's going to be a lot of mobility that they're losing out on this fight. The Gaming Reptile is just going to swing his hammer like a madman. He's getting healed. It doesn't matter. He's got ult as well, and it does go down. Finds the Diva and a couple others as Zero picks up the kills. Good block on the Diva mech. As Zero and Syax bully the ulting monkey. Apple's gonna contest, but again, he's just feeding at this point. The fight's moved very forward. We'll see if that punishes the Toronto Tempest. Unwanted does get Squishy Robot, though. As the Toronto Tempest just continues to move forward. Unwanted is going to go back to the point as there's someone on it. Never mind, he's going to ignore it. Someone else can deal with the Tracer. And that is going to be Gaming Reptile, as USR does back away. USR does have Pulse Bomb, though, which could lead to a win for this fight. Only gets Reinhardt. Barriers and healing are going to come through. But he is farming off on Sayax and already has a third of his ult back. We've got another Earth Shatter coming up. This could be huge and what they need for Toronto Tempest to take this point back, but he's at so low health and he loses the Shatter as he does a Hail Mary. It does look like Houston Inlaws is going to be able to recap this as well. Jake's actually switched over the Pharah, seems to be the man of many hats, as he switched over to yet another DPS, and already at 91% ultimate. There's maybe 1.5, maybe 2 fights for the Toronto Tempest to retake this point, otherwise it is going to go in the favor of the Houston Inlaws. Balls is looking for maybe a cheeky Diva Bomb, as it does go past the Reinhardt's shield. Doesn't pick up anyone, but Jake picks up 2, picks up 3, as this now decimated team of tanks tries to push this point. But it does not look like they are going to be able to make it. Incredibly close game, but in the end will go in the favor of the Houston Inlaws. We're going to go to the Ruins next. This is fairly similar to the last map where you can run Reinhardt Zarya. Triple tank is still an option, especially if you just want to all brawl on this point. Widow is, again, incredibly good on this style of map. There's so many spots for Widow to snipe from, particularly here, and there, and over there, and up there, and here. We're going to go on Toronto Tempest, another dive with Unwanted on the Widow, which is a very good decision based on what we've seen from Unwanted, who already has 10% ultimate charge. On the opposing side, we're going to have the same comp of a standard dive with Moira. Except Jake's actually on the Diva. Jake is not on DPS anymore. Unwanted does take a lot of damage from Jake, but not finished off, as he does find a health pack. On the point, though, the fight seems pretty messy. There's lots of Winstons and Moiras and Divas just doing scattered damage to each other. Unwanted incredibly low, does go down to Balls as he pushes the point again, almost has ultimate. Balls finds Winston on the way, but Zero actually got ultimate already and used it on the Lucio and the Diva. Balls is going to try and save this. He does have ultimate, but he knows that he shouldn't use it because most of his team is dead, and using that would be a waste.
I am healed.
Good game sense from Zero. He was going to hold off on that for the next fight. Toronto Tempest is able to take it, and with 2, almost 3 ults, they should be able to hold it for a good amount longer. Ball's already at low health. Diva Bomb just sitting on that tree for a little bit. Actually kills Apple. I'm not entirely sure how. His barrier must have gone down at an incredibly inopportune time. The fight is still going on, though, despite losing. Apple, the Houston Inlaws, is still going to try and make this fight with barriers coming out and Dragon Blade. He gets one. Jake gets another. Balls finishes off Zero. And they don't even need Winston to take on that fight. He does show up later, but they are able to successfully finish off this point as AX does a little spin to win, spin to stall, spin to move your head hitbox so you get headshotted less easily. We have a lot of ultimates on both sides, particularly the Toronto Tempest. And again, if Unwanted can get a good pulse bomb, this could be a pretty swift fight in favor of the Toronto Tempest. Seems he spotted Winston, who jumps away and does not die as he ults. Both big monkeys on the point. Zero takes down 2 with his own ultimate. And it looks like the fight is still messy, but gonna go in favor of the Toronto Tempest for a retake. And then an overextending Tracer gets caught out, possibly trying to return back to the team. We're gonna move on to Houston Inlaws' next attack. They've still got time, but it's actually in favor of the Toronto Tempest. Quite a departure from the last map. Jake goes right onto the point, gets away to get some healing. Blade does come in. Doesn't quite get anything with it yet. Does find one, but gets taken out by the Diva Bomb. Pulse Bomb does take out Unwanted. Gaming Reptile does block that Diva Bomb though. Does end up dying like Apple did earlier, somehow, as this fight is still going to go on. Toronto Tempest does have it at 99, but the kills do seem to be coming in for the Houston Inlaws. Balls is gonna try and get some stagger picks on the way out. Isn't able to finish off Moira, but does his job of pushing her away. But now at 50%, they're gonna have to hold this point for a while, because one retake from Toronto Tempest mostly means the end of the game. Or the round, rather. Transcend is coming up on his Coalescence. As Jake is incredibly low, but that is going to give him his ultimate, and he's going to have to use it right now. As a Gaming Reptile just kind of pushes him away, and off the map! This is going to be a pretty swift fight, and a retake for Toronto Tempest, and most likely a point. See if anyone can get any late pulse bomb kills, and he does stick it onto someone, and Transcend gets a little bullied here at the end.
Score 1-1.
Looks like the same composition from the Toronto Tempest it worked out last time. Although this is the map where you actually can run Orisa Hog incredibly well. Both the halt and the hook centered in on that pit is incredibly powerful. And it looks like Balls, at the very least, has the right idea, as he is going to switch over to the Roadhog. Apple's going to stay on the Winston. Going to try and get that pick potential.
3.
And at the last second, Toronto Tempest is going to, in fact, run Orisa Hog. Lucy's going to speed boost them to the point. They're going to try and get any picks that they can using some environmental silliness. Unwanted's already in the back line, already doing damage, and Winston gets pulled in, is able to jump out though, but it's incredibly dangerous. Unwanted gets picked as US Air is in the back line. Apple finds his own pick. US Air does go down, but the damage has already been done. Balls hooks Sayax into the pit. Transcend has a little bit of fun down there. And as stragglers aside, this is going to go in favor of the Houston Inlaws. Jake gets a late pick onto Ash. As this fight's it's a little bit forward. Pretty dangerous. But Balls actually gets the pick on Unwanted. Jake goes down as well. Roadhog's doing a lot of work for their respective teams. But the team fight's actually going to split up. Roadhog is in the back fighting a Roadhog 1v1. Does get ulted into a corner. Balls barely makes it out of that alive. But the fight does get slowly pushed onto the point with these Orisa barriers. I am a big fan of the DPS switch that Unwanted has done onto the Reaper. It's very good versus Winston and Roadhog. But unfortunately, his team's still getting pushed back, as this is looking incredibly one-sided so far. Blade does come out for naught. SIX does end up using his whole hog. Swish Robot, if need be, does have Transcendence. Oh, and a lot of damage onto Gaming Reptile as he just deletes Orisa with a volley of headshots. Moira sees the Zenyatta and decides, not today, I'm not going to fight that fight. Zero has swapped onto the Pharah, seeing that there's aside from US Air, not a lot of opposition to an aerial character, but we have seen Zero on Pharah before and it did not work out very well. He does have 44% ult already though. So with this last team fight coming up, it's possible that he may have a chance to get good damage or boobs to lead to an ultimate. Bears do come out, pulse bomb as well. Zero does find a pick onto Jake, but gets pushed into a Deadeye. Quite a brutal ultimate combination. And that is going to be the last pick off onto Ashe, as this confirms Houston Inlaws' second game.
Play of the game.
US Air is going to get play of the game off of this good Roadhog combination. Actually, no, it was earlier. He does get that last final pick. And then he goes after Ashe, and that is quite the cleanup to take that game. Six Dragon Blades, 9 kills, nice.
Epic.
Apple putting in a lot of work on his team though, 39 eliminations over 3 rounds. That is quite the effort. Now looking at that match, there were one-sided moments, but it definitely looked so much closer than the first game on King's Row. The fact that Tempest took the second point very convincingly was really interesting, given that they lost that third point even worse. It may be due to some uncomfortable DPS roles, or maybe not knowing what kind of DPS to play. There's a lot of frustration when you're a DPS player, when you're playing characters and like nothing's happening. Even I'm getting picks, but the team isn't able to push forward, which ends up in switching a lot of DPS, which doesn't actually help that much. What you want to do in this competitive setting is to pick a character and switch if you're getting countered or if it's really not working. But if you're doing well, you need to continue to communicate with your team, which may have been the bigger issue. Lack of communication on the side of Toronto Tempest, not saying, not calling out what target to go for or who's low. Maybe there's a lack of a particular shot caller, but that is all things to work on. And it wasn't all bad, especially given the ruins and how they won that very strongly. Transcend had a lot of really good coalescences, got a lot of healing on that, midpoint, a nice brawl area for the Winstons and Moiras of the world. But on both Lighthouse and Well, they just didn't seem to be able to pull out a win. So we'll see how they try to adapt in this next game. And I'm going to see if we know where we're going. Does not seem like we know quite yet, so we are going to go to a short, couple-minute break. we are off to Hanamura. Starting off in the arcade. We've got some games that we all wish we could play, although there does seem to be some infighting in the comms, so unsure if the game will actually start. In a unfortunate miscommunication, it would seem. It does look like the Houston Inlaws is going to switch out some players. There's some arguing back and forth between the Tempest and the Inlaws. So as that gets figured out, we will get back to you soon. As jammin' as that Lucio music is, we're gonna jump back into Hanamura for a second time. This time with the correct players. And here we have Temple of Anubis. One of the most annoying choke points in the entire game. It's perfectly sized for a Mei wall. There's a lot of good tanking that can be done right there. And moving on to the point, there's a lot of high ground for snipers and soldiers. And then the real fun starts on the second point, when the enemy spawn is incredibly close to where the point actually is. That is why colloquially, this used to be called Dranamura, given how often draws would be gotten before the competitive change. Even then, draws are still fairly often on this kind of map. Particularly Hanamura, given how easy, or not easy, but how conveniently placed the defending spawn is. It does look like we've got Jake on the Hanzo. Just kidding, it's Jake Rat. We're going to be running Ryan Zarya on the side of the Houston Inlaws with a Junkrat Tracer, which is a very good combination. If Junkrat gets grenades that do either direct hit or splash damages, Junkrat is able to call that out to the Tracer, who can try and finish off those targets. On the other hand, we've got Reinhardt and Zarya on the Houston Inlaws. It's a very good combination, as we have seen. We do have Syx on the Roadhog on the opposing team with Gaming Reptile, which is another good tank combination. It does look like Houston Inlaws is just gonna kind of walk onto this point. And one, it does have the high ground, but Junkrat reigns from above. He does catch the trap, but he is a little hesitant about that 1v1, as Junkrat does do a lot of damage. Gaming Reptile does get taken out in this corner, where this fight seems to be happening, as already this is going in favor of the Houston Inlaws. Unwanted and Syx can do what they can. Unwanted is actually going to go around and get the high ground or heal, but on the point, it looks already like a lost cause for defense. She gets the healing that he needs as he chases that Moira orb all the way around the room. And things are going to move on to the second point. Because the Toronto Tempest died so early, they were able to set up their defense on the point. So just rushing the second point is not the optimal strategy. They're gonna walk slowly onto it though, instead of opting for the high ground. A tire does come out from 0, does get 2, and that's already gonna be enough to stop this push. Apple's at 30 health, a punch is gonna kill him, but Gaming Reptile gets a double fire strike kill. With just one ultimate, they were able to completely stop that push. Unwanted is on his soldier. He's gonna try and get high ground. Really interesting positioning. Doesn't quite make it though. Runs and forgets about the rocket jump. The Houston Inlaws are coming up through these stairs though. Jake's got ultimate. We know how good those have been half the time. They either kill about 3 or 0 people. But in any case, he doesn't see the soldier, as he is now at less than half health, as they're getting sandwiched. Soldier on one side, Winston on the other. Gaming Reptile does pick up a lot of those kills and chases out the Discorded Moira on the way out. Winston sadly doesn't do enough damage to really take out a Moira. But despite that fight being won very quickly for the Toronto Tempest, this is exactly what the Houston Inlaws wanted, because look at their ultimates. They have almost 6 ultimates. That's the exact kind of dry run that they want to run. 6 ultimates can be super overwhelming, especially since a lot of members of Toronto Tempest switched characters after their first hold. 0 is only halfway to ult, Syx does not have his, neither does Unwanted. And with all these ultimates, this is probably the best chance that they're going to have to take point B, or at least a good chunk of it. Jake's going to take this high ground. Pulse Bomb does get 2. Perhaps an unnecessary use of ultimates with a Riptire as well. When 0 actually took out Jake somehow. But this fight is looking pretty solidly in favor of the Houston Inlaws. Although with the trickle coming in from the Tempest, they might be able to hold it in the end. At the very least, the Houston Inlaws can be happy that they did get an entire tick. That is just the kind of map this is. As look at everyone under the Tempest, already back, already fighting. And with Mercy down, Tracer down, Moira, that's gonna be a hold. Still though, that's a lot of good value gotten from the Houston Inlaws, as they're gonna try and regroup and take this a little bit more slowly without their ultimates. Jake is gonna switch over to the Tracer.
My will made real.
Gonna avoid some Moira orbs, as this can be pretty devastating to Tracer, as Moira orbs do 200 damage, which is 50 more than Tracer even has. Pulse Bomb does go on to Jakarta, who almost flies into his team. He's the only one that gets picked, but that is going to put quite the hole onto that push. 0 actually gets a reflect kill onto Jake. That's going to be another stagger pick. Toronto Tempest could push this if they want, but they've already done what they need to. Actually, it's Houston Inlaws that need to be gone already. They should not still be here. Once they lost their Mercy, they should have backed up. Once they lost another, they should have been so far away. The fact that Balls died this late is not good coordination or disengagement from the Houston Inlaws. Houston Inlaws is starting to rack up ultimates though, but at the same rate, so is Toronto Tempest.
Very well.
Look at this good dive position from Gaming Reptile and 0. That doesn't look like it's gonna come in too handy, as the Houston Inlaws are gonna come in from that far right side. Everyone is gripped up though, so it is, given the right protection, a good ult potential for 0. Self does go down, but he's still living, gets healed up by Jakarta. Slow herself, but US Air actually does get a Deadeye on a couple. And apologies, I did say Jakarta instead of Honor Caution. Inlaws is going to push this point though. Graviton's up, Earth Shatter's up. They already got a second tick. It's possible they could get this third. Graviton does come out, gets the Mercy and the Genji. And Earthshatter just pick up Roadhog with just the Winston on the point. But the Tracer and the Zenyatta are trickling in. This could be the same situation as last time, where despite killing character after character from Houston Inlaws onto Toronto Tempest, the spawn advantage is just too much, and Toronto Tempest is going to be able to stop this push yet again. But still, another tick is still solid.
Very well.
This is a lot of the times the rate that these 2 CP maps go at. So Houston Inlaws is doing very well. That being said, they only have less than a minute to take that last third if they want a chance at another round. The person to watch right now will be US Air, who's got another Deadeye. Spotted the Winston. Gonna try and get him off that high ground. Oof, but that Deadeye is going to be a non-factor unless Dakarta can resurrect him. And it doesn't look like that's going to be a possibility. Toronto Tempest in a good position to dive in on these healers and finish off this push. That being said, Jake and Balls get picks up their own. And talk about C9! Fight happens on the high ground, completely ignoring the fact that the point was being captured. Toronto Tempest, Zenyatta tries to contest with his ultimate, but couldn't get there fast enough, as the fight was clearly in Toronto's favor, but the Inlaws was able to just take the point regardless. That must be incredibly frustrating for the Toronto Tempest, who were having such a good hold until then. It is now going to be Inlaws' turn to defend. As it does look like they're going to go with the Orisa Hog Junkrat, incredibly potent. Get barriers, halt hook, and Junkrat bombs. Especially with a halt into a tire. It's all a lot of good damage and pick potential. US Air on the pretty good McCree that we've seen from him. He's going to try and get any flankers. Dakarta's on the Mercy and Transcend is on the Moira. Still going with the 2 main healer combination. Gonna make sure Apple and Balls stay alive as long as possible. As hopefully the Roadhog Junkrat and Orisa have enough damage output to make up for not having a secondary healer that has a speed boost or discord. On the opposing side, we are going to have a standard dive featuring Zero on the Junkrat. And if only we could take the Pachimaris with us.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And the fight starts. Moira Orb does come through, but gets eaten by Syax. Good eats. It does look like the Toronto Tempest sees the barrier and knows how hard it's going to be to try and push through that. Syax actually gets away, but Jake gets unwanted. US Air gets 0, possibly from a halt combo. And so far, it's looking pretty good for the Houston Inlaws, but it is much too early to tell. This is a very good position for Jake to spam his grenades, though. Find this erase barrier, there's no one that can touch him except for a Tracer that goes past the barrier. But Junkrat versus Tracer is definitely a one-sided fight. Balls does get 0. Jake does get healed up. Balls gonna try and go for a little bit of an ambitious hook. Oh, but a scatter arrow finds Jake. That does look like he's gonna get resurrected, but definitely not a way you want to die. Just look at Houston Inlaws is going to have to hold a little bit backwards. And Gaming Reptile is starting to push forwards. Discord on the Orisa. That's both hogs down. Deadeye gets nothing as Unwanted finishes off the Mercy with a scatter arrow, and this is going to be a very one-sided fight in favor of the Toronto Tempest as they lose no members. And look at the ultimates. They've got Gaming Reptile's Big Monkey. Unwanted has his Dragon ready for zoning. And it looks like Unwanted and Gaming Reptile might just jump right onto the point. and cause some mayhem. Unwanted gets to Carta. That's huge to start this fight. And he's going to jump on the point. Discord's already on the Orisa. That's a lot of damage going on to the Orisa. Here come the dragons. Turns out Unwanted was fighting the Roadhog in the back. But he does get the pick. And already half the point gone over to the Toronto Tempest. Jake does finish off Unwanted. But that's still so much value out of this push. Little bit of an unnecessary ultimate from Jakarta. Definitely probably could have been used when a fight was actually happening. But mistakes happen. Zero switched over to the Reaper. Definitely good against Winston Roadhog. Actually, Reinhardt D.Va, rather. For him to ult, though, he will have to have D.Va out of mech. Fight doesn't seem to be happening over on the side as US Air gets 2 picks. He's incredibly low, but he's got Deadeye. So we'll see if maybe he can do something with it. He does get that pick on Zero, as he is the only one who's going to die. And Jake the D.Va is gonna push those healers off the high ground. He does have D.Va Bomb ready for another good stop. Now we do see Syx has actually switched over to the Zarya. Which is interesting given that Houston Inlaws does not have a Junkrat anymore. There's not really a character that you can get energy for free. Here comes the D.Va Bomb, here comes the wave. Doesn't pick up anyone as Gaming Reptile actually finds balls. And with his discorded targets combined with the Winston, people are going down, but not as fast as the US Air gets a triple Deadeye. That was looking so good for the Toronto Tempest, but US Air's great positioning and great Deadeye just swings that fight in favor of the Houston Inlaws. Balls has his own ultimate. A little bit confused as to why Lucio is here. And suddenly he's at 9 health due to that Hanzo. He's going to get health on his own, despite the fact that both of his healers needed ultimate at the time. It's a very villainous thing to do, Reaper. Unwanted sends in his dragons. Finds a different pick. His dragons may have been eaten because I'm not sure where they were. Very low mercy, but he still isn't able to finish it off as Scatter just completely goes under her. Earth Shatter does come through, but Transcendence as well. Ultapalooza. D.Va Bomb doesn't pick up anyone, but Toronto is completely scattered. What used to be a uniformed push is just on the high ground, on the low ground, on the bridge. They're just all over the place, and they need to disengage. It doesn't look like Gaming Reptile is going to get away. Oh, but Ashe and Honor Caution get caught out late. So does Zyx. What were they doing back there? That's incredibly bad for the Toronto Tempest, as that's going to be 3 more spawns that they have to wait for. US Air has another Deadeye. But on the attacking team, Toronto Tempest could use a Graviton Tire combo, which would be very good for them because they haven't had any progress since that first push. Unwanted is getting bullied by D.Va just a little bit, as Jake is able to get away. He does have more dragons, though. And he does pick off Jake. Everyone's on the high ground. He might use the dragon now. Oh, and he's using the Dragon Graviton combo. Very smart. He's looking for the Jedi. He sees it, finishes off Unwanted, carrying this push all on his own. The point is just inches from being taken. As Transcendence gets taken, Unwanted picking up kill after kill after kill. Ashe does get balls. And Earth Shatter comes out from the Houston Inlaws. And this is actually going to go in favor of the Houston Inlaws at the very end. An unfortunate Transcendence from Ashe, as he should have either used that earlier or held on to it. Gets picked off late by US Air. It was so close. It was at 99%, but they were not able to finalize that point. Despite the effort that Unwanted put in. Although he does have another ultimate coming up soon. Shoots his own team strap, just in case. You never know. He has tire, or he has a, not tire, but Dragons again. Does pick up the Mercy, and this is gonna go through the point. Jake is down here though, and Unwanted at very low health. 15, as a matter of fact. That's not gonna be a fight. He's gonna win. And Houston Inlaws is gonna make sure that they don't C9 this time. That being said, the picks are still coming in for the Toronto team, but still too slowly to actually take it. That's the worst part, is that if you don't get kills fast enough, even if you get kills, it doesn't matter, because Houston will be able to stagger themselves onto the point. And look at that, it was at 99% again. USAir gets a late pick onto Unwanted. And honestly, that might be the pick that stops this fight entirely. Transcend uses Coalescence to heal up his team. And perhaps for a little bit of fireworks, as this point is going to be over very soon in favor of the Houston Inlaws. Despite Unwanted almost getting to the cut, almost getting to the point. He's unable to contest, and that is going to be another point for the Houston Inlaws. The good pulse bomb with the grab. And another pick off onto Ash with the melee to finish it off. That was a big play on the side of Unwanted.
Excellence is its own reward.
So regarding that game, that was another really close game, but Toronto made a lot of pretty big mistakes. Particularly C9ing on the defense, despite nearly holding it, was such a huge mistake. As if they had stopped that from being captured, they had the potential to win. Or at least bring it around to a tie. It was just very unfortunate. Not to say that Houston Inlaws is off the hook. They played very well. Unwanted on Tempest was very good. Had amazing plays, but unfortunately the rest of the team was not able to kill at the same speed and rate as Unwanted. On the Inlaws side, though, while they were very good, there were there were a few issues, particularly with ultimate usage. Particularly their push onto the Toronto's defense on point B. You even saw him play the game. Tracer used Pulse Bomb in the Graviton and got picks, and then Jake used his Tire, which those ultimates are already very similar, and you don't need to use them at the same time just for one Graviton. If they had spaced out their ults had better sequencing, they might have been able to just take that point entirely, as Jake would have been able to use his Tire to get any stragglers coming out of the Toronto spawn to stop them before they can contest. That being said, they did still win. It was very good game sense to take the point while the team fight was happening on the high ground. And very unfortunate for the Toronto Tempest, who seemed to be having a hard time just finishing that off, as they got to 99% 2 times in a row. And they were looking so good after their first push onto point B, but unfortunately they just could not close it out. That being said, we are going to switch over to a new map, and I will be back shortly. and we are headed to our final match on Dorado. A classic payload map, despite being the last payload map added before the game was released, for those fortunate enough to play in the beta. Here we're going to have one of the hardest choke points in the map. It'll be up to the attacking team to decide how they want to push this, although it is a lot of times the defending team that holds up here and then rotates around to hold the choke point at the beginning of the map. So we'll see how the defending team holds this. It is going to be the Houston Inlaws defending first. We've got Arisa Hawk again with the Junkrat for the just pure raw damage, as well as US Air on his hit scan McCree, and double main healer again. It's been working out well. Why stop now? There's a trap on the payload. Maybe get replaced, or maybe Jake just wants to sit in it. Jake is gonna put a trap down just right in front of D.Va's face. Honor caution. Not on a support right now, is actually going to play D.Va. Most likely saw that trap. We're gonna go on a pretty different kind of composition here. We've got Dive, we also have Reaper and McCree. Oh, Syx does get caught by the trap. Maybe that was a lack of communication, but that does depend on if Honor Caution actually saw it or not. Jake is just gonna rain damage down onto the payload, as that Winston barrier is going to be gone. Honor Caution's gonna try and intercept up on the top. He's going to take a lot of damage and have to fall down. But the payload is moving under the bridge. Ball's just going to pick on Syx. And now the payload is getting contested. Jake does find a kill onto Zero. It does look like this is where the payload is going to stop for now. Jake's already closing in on his first tire as he gets Gaming Reptile as he leaves. Interesting that Gaming Reptile and Honor Caution have swapped roles. But it may be that they're just seeing what'll work. This is the preseason, so it does not affect the seeding in the playoffs. So you can try whatever you think is good. See what works, see what doesn't. That does look like Honor Caution is going to be pushing Jake off the point, or off the high ground. He's probably going to be looking for a tire soon. US Air does get Gaming Reptile with Deadeye. And here comes the tire. What a quad kill? I thought people would be too far away, but it gets a quad kill and Honor Caution goes down to 30 health. That's huge from Jake. That's going to stop that push and then some. Syx is going to swap over to the Reinhardt. I'm not sure if this is the correct decision against Junkrat, but they're going to see if they can make work, and they're actually going to try and stealth their way around under the point. It does seem that Balls has seen them. He's going to alert the rest of his team. But this is still a much better position than behind the choke point. Zero on a Junkrat of his own is going to try and get as much damage as he can. Transcendence does come out, as do barriers. I don't like that. They should not have used those ults together. But Mongos does come out from Arisa, as Apple's doing an insane amount of damage, but does get taken down by Zero. Jake gets a triple kill in the back, though, and a D-Mech. That's going to be another stop. Honor Caution does take out Jake, but it does seem that a late grenade is going to finish off Honor Caution as well. This choke point has just been so good for Jake, as the damage has just been pouring in, funneled onto the enemy team, giving him the tires so often. And the Tempest doesn't seem to be able to take these tires out before they can do the damage. Yvonne does go past the Arisa barrier, and does get to Carta, but kills are going back and forth. Jake takes out Unwanted. Doesn't even need to try and fight at Zero, because Balls is going to finish him off. Earthshare does come through, but Whole Hog's just going to push him right away. the mech down, and 20 seconds left. This is going to be a very tough push, especially with that late kill on Syax. And Zero takes out Jake's tire. He's going to have none of that for this last fight.
10 seconds remaining.
With Valkyrie, it'll be very interesting to see if Toronto Tempest can get any footing against Jakarta's healing and damage boosting.
I will watch over you.
And it does not seem like that will be the case, as the payload just gets barely past to the first choke point before just falling apart.
Score 0-0. Switching sides.
This is looking to be a very short game 4, as it seems the role switches weren't quite working out for the Toronto Tempest. But it's always good to try something new, especially during the preseason. And if it doesn't work out, now you know. But the payload for the side of Houston only has to go this far, which is not very far indeed. Past the first choke point, and essentially they've won the game and gotten a 4-0. Not to say that it is impossible for Toronto Tempest to win the game. If they play very well, they do have a chance to hold just like Houston did, but it will definitely be an uphill battle. We have Orisa Hog as well for the Toronto Tempest defense, and we're actually going to see Unwanted on the Doomfist, which is definitely an interesting pick. We'll see if he tries to get any sneaky punches, as there's no Zarya to bubble him, and there's no tanks to dive with, as Roadhog and Orisa are very stationary and won't be able to help him at all.
Attackers incoming in 30 seconds.
Alternatively, we do have Jake on Mercy, and Jakarta on the Widow.
Never stop fighting for what you believe in.
Noticing that Jake wants to play a different sniper. The sniper that can't headshot. Maybe as a personal challenge. But that does seem to be just a joke, as Jake goes back to Diva. Gonna run dive with Mercy.
4, 3, 2,
And again, they don't need to go very far. You
attackers
can basically see where the payload needs to go from here.
escort the payload.
Stays.
We already have US Air pulling a flank. Gonna see if he can go up there and cause some chaos to let his team push the payload under the choke point. Apple actually gets unwanted while this long flank ensues. Just gotta be careful about Zero. The Gaming Reptile is very low. Zero does catch him though. But the picks are coming in from the Houston Inlaws as both tanks are down. And this is going to be quick indeed. Ash gets picked off. Unwanted. Didn't seem to get any value out of Doomfist as he died very early to Winston. And that's going to be the game. The match. And the set. A 4-0 for Houston.
Of the game.
Jake, of course, with one of his quad kill tires, I would assume. Incredibly well placed. And here they come. There's the 4 kills. And a dance to finish it off. One-third of Jake's kills were rip tires that game. And with that, the set is over. There were a lot of issues with that game, as you can probably imagine. I think a lot of it must have come down to the role swapping, as the tanks and healers, or at least Gaming Reptile and one of his healers swapped roles. Gaming Reptile went from tank to healer, and one of his teammates went from healer to tank. That may have been a lot of the issue. Otherwise, they did use their healing ultimates pretty poorly. At some point, they used Transcendence and Barrier at the same time, which is definitely not something you want to do under any circumstances. And just left the Houston Inlaws uncontested. Jake was able to just rain damage. He might have died once if he died. Houston Inlaws just did not take much damage. did not die. He did die to the baby diva, who ended up dying to his late grenades, but that's it. The Toronto Tempest needed to be a lot more coordinated with their dives and their pushes. They needed to get out faster, disengage faster, but that's all things that they're here to learn, because that's the point of the Overwatch Community Cup, and that will be today's Community Cup match. Not sponsored. See you next week.